Progressive rock is a subgenre of rock music, and specifically of psychedelic rock music, that began in England and the USA in the late 1960s and early 1970s. In 1967, Jeff Beck, Procol Harum, and the Moody Blues released classically inspired rock music. Pink Floyd's first album contained long instrumental improvisations, at least partially inspired by some of Britain's most experimental music. Many British rock bands, such as Gentle Giant, began incorporating ideas taken from classical music, and the wide variety of new electronic instruments and effects that were newly available also greatly affected the music. King Crimson's debut album, In the Court of the Crimson King, in 1969, is widely regarded as a landmark in progressive rock. In the 1970s, the genre quickly expanded to Western Europe, with many bands forming in each country. Established progressive bands built a strong fan base, and Genesis, ELP, Yes, Jethro Tull, and Pink Floyd scored top 10 albums. By this time, several successful North American progressive rock bands were in existence. During the mid to late 70s, progressive rock expanded to Eastern Europe, Japan, and Latin America, and gained a unique voice by incorporating elements of these regions' distinct sounds into their progressive rock. Progressive rock's popularity, however, dwindled by the end of the decade as the style's biggest bands began to run out of steam and as disco and punk became popular. The early 1980s saw a revival of the genre in England that was eventually mirrored in all corners of the world, particularly in Eastern Europe and then in Latin America, where many bands were formed. The genre enjoyed another revival in the 1990s, led by Scandinavian bands and the emergence of progressive metal in the US. With the fall of the Soviet bloc, Eastern Europe and Russia saw the emergence of new bands, as these countries began to have better access to world markets and trends. In the 2000s, starting in the US and quickly spreading elsewhere, many young musicians began using elements of punk, math rock, post-rock, and other influences, and began to gain recognition for their new, fresh take on progressive rock.